What's good, Planet Earth? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Charlie and thank you for being here. Today we are getting into a request from the two best people in the world, my mum and dad, so you have them to thank for this one. I was just having coffee with them today and they told me that they'd seen this on TV last night. This is a short film about the Beatles and their newly released song Now and Then. Now, it was really interesting talking to them about it, and my mum made a great point that it was a very different experience being a Beatles fan for my mum than it was my dad. And obviously this is their era. They grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and so they've been a fan throughout their entire career and saw the progression. But my mum was saying how it was a very different experience being a girl as a Beatles fan, because it was really one of the first boy band experiences and that sort of hysteria around it. And he said how each of her friends was into a different band member and how they'd just be looking for any insight into or more information about them and their lives, even though some of it was probably just made up. But it was a very interesting conversation and they were clearly very moved and touched by this short film, so I thought we'd get into it and I thought it'd make a good reaction. Anyway, welcome if you're new. I hope you enjoy the reaction. Let's get into it, and without further ado, let's go.
2 take 1, silent turnover.
You ready, Ringo? Come on, we're doing it. We're on. 1, 2, 3.
Which key is it in, really?
1, 2, 3, 4. Ringo. Oh, are you there?
I'm ready to sing it to the world.
I hope we pass the audition.
Good me, what calls it was.
Come together.
Keep that one. Mark it fab.
Making good music in a band is all about chemistry. The way our 4 very different personalities combined in the Beatles was something very special. When we lost John, we knew that it was really over. But in 1994, amazingly, an interesting opportunity arose. We could make more music together.
If we were to do something, the three of us, as interesting as it may be, to have John in it is the obvious thing. I was talking to Yoko, and she said, I think I've got a tape of John.
We were pretty excited. A new John song. Amazing.
To hear John's voice, that's the thing that we should cherish. And I'm sure he would have really enjoyed that opportunity to be with us again.
We could use John and try and make a record. It was the closest we'll ever come to having him back in the room.
I'm getting tingles already and I've got a lump in my throat. I don't know about you guys. I'm there already.
Again.
We could use John and try and make a record. It was the closest we'll ever come to having him back in the room.
I do remember living at the Dakota with Dad and Mom. There's this impression that my dad stopped doing music for a while to raise me, which I think is partially true in terms of him not touring and not fulfilling any major record label obligations. But he was always playing music around the house. He was always making demos, and I do remember him recording into these tape cassette recorders. Mom had these handful of songs that my dad hadn't finished, and she gave them to the other Beatles.
George and Ringo came down to my studio.
Nice day. Oh, fabulous day, look.
We listened to the track. There's John in his apartment in New York City, banging away at his piano, doing a little demo. Is it something we shouldn't do? Every time I thought like that, I thought, wait a minute. Let's say I had a chance to ask John, hey, John, would you like us to finish this last song of yours? I'm telling you, I know the answer would have been, yeah. He would have loved that.
What a beautiful thing to know a human being that well that you know what the answer would be. I mean, that just gives you the answer, doesn't it?
I know the answer would have been, yeah. He would have loved that.
There was very strange when we started that there's only three of us after all those years and all that life.
John, really excited. You want to put the kettle on?
We did Freeze a Bird and Real Love, and we got a little bit of time left to do Now and Then.
When we started Now and Then, it was very difficult because John was sort of hidden in a way.
In John's demo tape, the piano was a little hard to hear. And in those days, of course, we didn't have the technology to do the separation.
You know, that's computer stuff. You know, I was telling you a year ago, Jeff was doing this thing on his computer, but it opens up a whole other kettle of fish.
Kind of
as to...
But will it open another year of work?
It really brought to the fore, to the three of us, that John's gone.
Every time we wanted a little bit more of John's voice, this piano came through and clouded the picture. I think we kind of ran out of steam a bit and time, and it was like, well, I don't know, maybe we'll leave this one.
Okay,
See you next week.
Next year.
Now and Then just kind of languished in a cupboard. And then in 2001, we lost George, which kind of took the wind out of our sails. It took almost a quarter of a century for us to wait until the right moment to tackle Now and Then again. With the technology that Peter Jackson and his team had worked out during the Get Back movie, he'd been able to separate off certain instruments and voices.
During the course of Get Back,
Really is incredible how quickly, comparatively quickly, technology has moved on, and what we can do with sound now is something else.
During the Get Back movie, he'd been able to separate off certain instruments and voices.
during the course of Get Back, we were paying a lot of attention to the technical restoration. That ultimately led us to develop a technology which allows us to take any soundtrack and split all the different components into separate tracks based on machine learning.
It's unbelievable.
Peter Jackson has the Mal machine, which can just lift anything.
We thought, well, we better send John's voice to them off the original cassette.
My dad would have loved that because he was never shy to experiment with recording technology. I think it's really beautiful.
They said, this is the sound of John's voice. A few seconds later, or however long it took, and there it was, John's voice, crystal clear.
I know it's true. It's all because of you. And if I make it through, it's all because of you.
Since Peter took John.
Wow. I'm blown away. That is another level of magic. A beautiful, beautiful moment. So impressive technologically. How special is that? That is something else.
of you.
Since Peter took John off and gave him his own track,
Humans are incredible sometimes, honestly.
it's like John's there, you know, it's far out.
So in the mix, we could lift John's voice without lifting the piano, which had always been one of the problems. Now we could mix it and make a proper record of it. I pulled it out, had a listen to it, and thought, oh, I could actually do the bass a bit better, so why don't I start there?
Paul called me up and said he'd like to work on Now and Then. What do you think? I think it's great. So he put the bass on, he sent the files to me, I put the drums on.
It really brought it on, you know, and so now we had a track that was really starting to cook. I've been vaguely thinking strings might be a good thing. The Beatles did lots of string things, you know, Strawberry Fields, Yesterday, I'm the Walrus. We wanted to go to Capitol Studios because that had been EMI and it was sort of Beatle-y. Giles worked up an arrangement like Giles's dad would have done in the old days. We had to put the music out on the stands for the musicians, but we couldn't tell them it was a new Beatles song. It was all a bit hush-hush. We pretended it was just something of mine.
That is so amazing. Imagine you don't even know the gravity of what you're doing, and then you find out later. God, that must have been so special for them.
On the new record, there's a guitar solo. We had kept George's guitar parts from '95. And I thought what I'd like to do is do a slide guitar solo in George's style. It was really a tribute to George. And then we started mixing it. Wow, this is it. Now it's a Beatle record.
1, 2.
It was incredibly touching to hear them working together after all the years that my dad had been gone.
I know it's true.
It's the last song that my dad and Paul and George and Ringo will get to make together.
And if I make it through, it's all because of you.
All of those memories come flooding back. My God, how lucky was I to have those men in my life and to work with those men so intimately and to come up with such a body of music.
Yeah.
To still be working on Beatles music in 2023, wow. We're actually messing around with state-of-the-art technology, which is something the Beatles would have been very interested in. Now and Then, it's probably like the last Beatles song, and we've all played on it, so it is a genuine Beatle recording. I'll tell you what, why don't you just give me a little bit of his original demo, just sort of hear how he's playing the piano.
That part could be played on like another thing.
Bring up and play it on this drum. Okay.
Yeah, tune tom-toms. Yeah.
We'll come in after this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking verse 3 could be like the intro again, you know.
Start again.
When are we ever going to get to sleep?
Well, that's a good question.
No rest for the wicked.
D-I-N, son. Do it now.
Colin, back it up a bit.
Can I just hear John's then?
Wow. Welcome to the Afterthought, guys. So, my overwhelming feeling is how such beauty can come out of tragedy. John was a tragedy, but losing George as well before this record was made, but still having enough to find a way to finish it and to make sure that that vision and that beautiful vision and that beautiful piece of music came to fruition. It was almost like it was written in the stars. It's that kind of thing. And do you know who else I get that kind of feeling with is the Irwins, Steve Irwin's family. It's like beauty to tragedy to beauty again. And I don't think there are better stories than that. Obviously, we'd all love there to be no tragedy, but actually some of the most beautiful things in this world wouldn't be so beautiful without the tragedy in them. And I very much feel like this is one of the things. Like Steve Irwin was one of the most fantastic, vibrant human beings that we've ever had in the spotlight. Just a wonderful, wholesome human being. And then he died and we lost him. And then I'm not trying to make this about the Irwins, but it's a relatable story and timeline. And then his kids, and notably Robert, because he's the man. Robert Irwin grew to be just like his dad and carry on that legacy. And I can't watch anything to do with the Irwins without getting emotional and tears streaming down my face. I love it. But anyway, it's that thing. It's beauty to tragedy to beauty again. And this is just such a story, you know. One of the most incredible musical stories out there. They really were something new in terms of the level of fanaticism and that whole buzz and the hysteria, and had this really sort of meteoric global rise, and then obviously the tragedy of John being killed. And this was just an amazing closing of that door, I feel. An amazing story. Absolutely unbelievable. And obviously the development of new technologies, which Paul said they would have loved to have been a part of that, you know. That was very much their sort of thing, and John would have approved, and everyone got to be a part of it, even though half of them weren't there anymore. Just an incredible story. Great suggestion, Mum and Dad. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that. Anyway, let's meet in the comments, guys. Love to hear what you have to say about it. And thanks for watching. If you're new, think about subscribing. If you do nothing else, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps the algorithm to push it to as many people as possible. Anyway, have a great day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, love everyone, and take care. I freaking love you guys.